At first, I didn't think much of it. Family is family, right? But then I noticed the way Daddy and Vernon would disappear into the barn for hours. The way they'd come back looking like they'd been arguing. The way Daddy would pour himself whiskey after. And Daddy never drank one night. I snuck out of bed and pressed my ear against the barn door. What I heard made my blood turn to ice water. Double quotes asterisk asterisk grandma colon asterisk asterisk. Vernon's voice was low, like a snake in tall grass. She's the only asset you got left, brother. The mine's closing. You owe money to half the county, and I got a buyer who's willing to pay good money for a healthy girl. I didn't understand what asset meant. I didn't understand what buyer meant, but I understood the silence that followed. The terrible, damning silence. My daddy didn't say no. Asterisk long, heavy pause asterisk he didn't say no. Asterisk asterisk grandma. Asterisk asterisk now. Before I go further, I need to tell you about the hollow. About the secrets that lived in those mountains like ghosts in the fog. You see, in those days, there was a wealthy family that owned most of the land in 3 counties. The Beaumont family. They lived in a mansion on the hill. White columns, wrap-around porch. The whole picture of Southern wealth. Old money, blood money, some said. Mr. Cornelius Beaumont was the patriarch. A widower with a son named Thomas, who was maybe 22, 23 at the time. Handsome in that cold, untouchable way. Eyes like winter ice. Everybody knew the Beaumonts had peculiar tastes. They collected things, art, horses, antiques. Asterisk voice drops to barely a whisper. Asterisk children. Asterisk asterisk grandma. Asterisk asterisk now. I didn't know this at 9. None of us children knew, but the adults. They whispered about it at church socials and barn dances, about how poor families' children would sometimes go work for the Beaumonts and never quite come back the same. Some didn't come back at all. They were adopted, people said, given better lives, sent to fancy schools up north. But nobody ever got letters from those children. Nobody ever saw them again. I wonder now if my daddy knew what he was really agreeing to. I wonder if he told himself pretty lies to sleep at night. Asterisk pause, asterisk, or maybe he just didn't care. Either way, the wheels were already turning, and I was about to become a Beaumont possession. Asterisk asterisk grandma. Asterisk asterisk I remember my last day as a free child with perfect clarity. September 3rd, 1952. A Tuesday. Mama woke me up early. Too early. The sun wasn't even thinking about rising yet. She bathed me in the big tin tub, which was strange because bath day was Saturday, not Tuesday. She scrubbed my skin until it was pink, combed my hair until it shone, and then she brought out the dress, her white cotton dress with the little blue flowers. The one she wore on her wedding day. The one she said she was saving for my wedding day. Mama, I asked, why am I wearing your special dress? She didn't answer. She just kept buttoning those little pearl buttons, and I saw her tears falling on the fabric, leaving dark spots like tiny bruises. Asterisk, asterisk, Grandma. Asterisk, asterisk, Daddy wasn't there that morning. Later, I'd learn he left before dawn. Couldn't bear to watch, I suppose. Couldn't bear to look his little moonbeam in the eyes. Uncle Vernon arrived at 7 o'clock sharp, driving a wagon I'd never seen before. It was painted black, like a hearse. Time to go, little lady, he said, grinning that awful grin. You're about to have the adventure of a lifetime. Mama collapsed on the porch, just crumpled like a paper doll. My brothers stood in the doorway, confused, still in their night clothes. The youngest, Billy, started to cry without knowing why. I wanted to run to Mama. I wanted to ask what was happening. But Uncle Vernon's hand was already on my shoulder, his fingers digging in like talons. Wave goodbye now, he whispered. Go on, be a good girl. So I waved. I waved goodbye to everything I'd ever known. And my mama, she never waved back. She just lay there on those wooden boards, sobbing like her soul was leaving her body. I think maybe it was asterisk, asterisk, Grandma, asterisk, asterisk. That wagon ride lasted 3 hours. 3 hours of bumping along dirt roads, watching the trees get taller and the houses get bigger. I asked Uncle Vernon where we were going. He said, to your new home, girl. You're gonna live like a princess. I asked him when I could come back. He laughed, actually laughed, and said, oh, honey, you ain't never coming back. But here's the thing about never, asterisk voice, strengthening asterisk sometimes. Never doesn't know who it's dealing with. The asterisk, asterisk, Grandma, asterisk, asterisk, the Beaumont estate rose up out of the hills like a white wedding cake, pillars taller than any tree I'd ever climbed, windows that glittered like cold eyes, a circular driveway with a fountain in the middle, an angel pouring water from a pitcher. I thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I was wrong. It was a beautiful cage. Uncle Vernon pulled the wagon around back, not to the grand front entrance, but to the servants' door. That should have been my first warning. A woman met us there. Her name was Mrs. Pruitt, the head housekeeper, tall, thin, face like a hatchet. She looked me up and down like I was livestock at auction. This the one? She asked Vernon. This is her, healthy, quiet, obedient, just like Mr. Beaumont requested. I watched them exchange a small velvet pouch. Even at 9, I knew what the clink of coins sounded like. I just didn't know those coins were buying my life. Asterisk, asterisk, Grandma. Asterisk, asterisk, Mrs. Pruitt grabbed my arm. Not gentle, not rough, just businesslike, and pulled me inside, through the servants' corridors, up a back staircase, past doors that were locked. So many locked doors. She finally stopped at a small room at the end of a long hallway. Inside was a narrow bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out onto the back gardens. "This is where you'll sleep," she said. "The rules are simple. Do what you're told. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't leave your room at night. And never, ever go to the 3rd floor." I nodded, too scared to cry. She turned to leave, then stopped, and for just a moment, something flickered in her cold eyes, something almost like pity. "You seem like a sweet girl," she said softly. "Try to stay that way. It won't last, but try." Then she was gone, and I was alone in the house of Beaumont. But I wasn't really alone. Someone was watching me from the shadows. Someone who would become my greatest enemy, and eventually my only friend. Asterisk, asterisk, grandma. Asterisk, asterisk, my first week in that house was a blur of chores and silence. I learned to make beds with hospital corners. I learned to polish silver until I could see my reflection. I learned to walk quietly, speak rarely, and disappear whenever Mr. Cornelius Beaumont entered a room. He was an old man, maybe 60. White hair, white beard, face like cracked leather. He looked at me only once, a long, appraising stare, and then never again. To him, I was furniture, less than furniture. But his son, Thomas, he looked at me often, too often. Thomas was different from his father. Where the old man was cold, Thomas was warm to warm. He'd smile at me when I served dinner. He'd find reasons to be in whatever room I was cleaning. He'd ask me questions. Where was I from? Did I miss my family? Did I like music? I didn't know then that his interest wasn't kindness. 3 weeks into my captivity, because that's what it was, though nobody called it that, I made my first friend. I was in the garden, beating rugs, when I heard a sound, a whistle, a little tune I recognized from back home. "Oh, Susanna." I followed the sound behind the rose bushes and found a boy, about my age, maybe a year older, dark skin, darker eyes, wearing clothes even more patched than my old ones had been. "You're the new one," he said, not a question. "I'm Eloise," I told him. That was my name then, Eloise Marie Calloway. He stuck out his hand. "I'm Samuel. Been here 2 years. I work the stables. 2 years. I couldn't imagine. Don't you miss home?" His eyes went hard. "Home didn't want me. At least here I get 3 meals. Samuel became my anchor in that house of horrors. He taught me the secret pathways, which floorboards creaked, which servants could be trusted, which rooms to avoid at all costs. But the most important thing, he told me, the thing that changed everything, he told me about the other children. There's 6 of us. Samuel whispered one night as we hid behind the stables. Used to be more. Some get graduated. That's what they call it. Graduated. Graduated to where? He shrugged, but his eyes told me he knew. And what he knew was too terrible to speak. The third floor, he continued. That's where they keep the special ones. The ones Mr. Thomas picks. We're not supposed to talk about it. But you need to know, Ellie. You need to be ready. Ready for what? Samuel gripped my hands. His fingers were trembling. Thomas has been watching you, asking about you. That means you're next. That means he's going to pick you for the third floor. What happens on the third floor? Asterisk long. Heavy silence, asterisk nobody knows for sure. But the children who go up there, they come back different. Quiet, empty, like somebody scooped out everything that made them. I should have run that night. Should have grabbed Samuel's hand and fled into the mountains. But where would we go? How would we survive? And the truth was, some part of me still believed adults knew better. Still believed there was a plan. Still believed someone, anyone, would come save us. Nobody was coming. Nobody ever came. Until the night Thomas Beaumont appeared at my bedroom door. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursday was fish night, and I hated fish. I'd hidden a bread roll in my apron to eat later. I was just drifting to sleep when I heard the creak of the floorboard outside my door. A shadow moved under the crack. Then the knob began to turn. My heart stopped, literally stopped. I forgot how to breathe. Thomas stepped inside. He was wearing a silk dressing gown, carrying a candle. In the flickering light, his face looked almost kind. "Don't be frightened, little dove," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to talk." He sat on the edge of my bed. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to disappear into the wallpaper. "You're special, Eloise. Do you know that? There's a light in you that the others don't have, a spark. I noticed it the moment you arrived." He talked for an hour about his loneliness, about how his father never understood him, about how he was looking for a companion, someone to share his life with, someone to mold. I was 9 years old. I didn't understand half of what he was saying, but I understood danger. Animals understand danger. Children understand danger. He reached out and touched my hair, ran his fingers through it like I was a pet. "Tomorrow," he said, "you'll move to the third floor. You'll have a beautiful room, new dresses, anything you want, and all you have to do is be mine." He stood, smiled that winter smile, and left. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling and prayed to a God I wasn't sure existed. By morning, I had made a decision. Asterisk voice hardening asterisk. I wasn't going to be anybody's property. Not my uncle's, not the Beaumonts, not anybody's. I was going to escape. or I was going to die trying. Samuel didn't want to help at first. It's suicide, he hissed. They'll catch us, and then they'll make an example of us. What do you think happens on the third floor, Samuel? You think that's not an example? He went quiet, chewed his lip. Finally, he nodded. There's a way out through the coal cellar. It leads to an old tunnel, used to be for moving goods during the Civil War. Comes out in the woods about a mile from the house. How do you know this? Because I found it 2 years ago. Been too scared to use it. But he looked at me. Guess I was waiting for someone brave enough to go with me. We made our plan. Saturday night. Mrs. Pruitt always drank sherry on Saturdays. The night guard was lazy and old. If we moved fast, moved quiet, we could be miles away before anyone noticed. But the Beaumont house had ears, had eyes, had secrets that listened from behind every wall. Friday evening, Thomas found me in the hallway. His smile was different now, colder, knowing. I hear you've been spending time with the stable boy, he said, whispering behind the bushes, making plans. My blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about, sir. Don't lie to me, little dove. I know everything that happens in my house, everything. He leaned close enough that I could smell the brandy on his breath. You try to fly away, and I'll clip your wings. Understand? I'll clip them at the joint. He straightened, adjusted his cuffs, and walked away whistling. I stood there, shaking, tears streaming down my face. Our plan was ruined. He knew everything, or so I thought. What Thomas didn't know was that Samuel had already thought of this possibility. The boy was clever, street clever, survival clever, the kind of clever that keeps you alive when the world wants you dead. He thinks we're running Saturday. Samuel whispered through my window that night. So we run tonight, right now. But the plan, forget the plan. The tunnel's still there. We just have to be faster. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I gathered my few belongings. My mother's dress, the one with the blue flowers, I couldn't leave it behind. It was the only thing I had left of her. We met behind the stables at midnight. The moon was full, bright as a spotlight. Bad for hiding, good for running. Samuel led me through the gardens, past the rose bushes, toward the old coal cellar. The entrance was hidden behind ivy, a rusted door that screamed when we opened it. We froze, waited, listened, nothing. We descended into the dark. The tunnel was exactly where Samuel said it would be, narrow, damp, smelling of mold and history. We had one candle between us. We walked for what felt like hours, and then we heard it. Footsteps. Behind us, running. They're coming. Samuel gasped. Run, run. We ran, blind, desperate. The candle blew out. I couldn't see Samuel. Could only hear his footsteps, his breathing, his prayers. The tunnel started to slope upward. Fresh air, freedom. I burst out into the moonlight, gasping, crying, laughing, and strong arms grabbed me from behind. They caught us. Of course they caught us. Did you really think it would be that easy? But what happened next? What they did to Samuel? What Thomas did to me? That's when I learned what real darkness looked like. And that's when I met the woman who would change everything. Her name was Dorothy, and she was already dead. They didn't hurt me. Not the way I expected. No, Thomas Beaumont was too clever for that. Marks could be seen. Marks could be explained. Instead, they hurt Samuel. They made me watch. I can still hear his screams. After 70 years, I can still hear them in my dreams. He was sent away the next morning. Where? I never knew. They told me he was graduated. That word again. That terrible word. And me? I was finally taken to the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor wasn't what I expected. It was beautiful, clean, elegant. Rooms filled with books and fine furniture. A piano in the corner. Windows that looked out on rolling hills. But it was a prison. The most beautiful prison ever built. I was the only child there. The others, there had been others I knew from Samuel, were gone, graduated. Mrs. Pruitt brought me my meals. Thomas visited every evening for lessons, reading, writing, etiquette, how to walk, how to speak, how to be a lady. He was molding me, shaping me into something, someone. I didn't understand the full horror of it until years later. He was raising me to be his bride. One night, about 3 months into my 3rd floor captivity, I couldn't sleep. I wandered to the window, staring at the stars, wondering if my mama ever looked at the same stars and thought of me. That's when I saw her, a woman in the garden, white dress, long dark hair, standing perfectly still by the fountain. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, looked again. She was gone. Over the next few weeks, I saw her again and again, always at night, always in white, always gone before I could call out. I asked Mrs. Pruitt about the woman in the garden. Her face went pale as milk. "There is no woman," she said. "You're imagining things. Don't speak of this again." But I wasn't imagining things. And soon enough, I found out who she was. Hidden in the back of my wardrobe, behind a loose panel, I discovered a journal, leather-bound, filled with elegant handwriting. It belonged to Dorothy Beaumont, Thomas's mother, the wife who died giving birth to him. Or so the story went. But as I read her journal, night after night, page after page, I discovered the truth. Dorothy didn't die in childbirth. Dorothy was murdered. And her killer? The man who put poison in her tea, who watched her suffer, who buried her in secret beneath the rose bushes, It was Cornelius Beaumont, her own husband. But that wasn't the biggest shock. No, the biggest shock was the last entry. The one that made my hand shake so hard I dropped the journal. Thomas wasn't her son. Thomas wasn't even a Beaumont. Thomas was stolen, bought from a desperate family for a bag of gold coins. Just like me, I should have kept this knowledge hidden, should have stayed quiet, stayed small, waited for my chance to escape again. But I was young, and when you're young, you still believe truth means something. I confronted Thomas. I showed him the journal, watched his face as he read, watched the color drain from his cheeks, the ice melt from his eyes. "You're lying," he whispered. "This is a trick. It's her handwriting, your mother's handwriting. Look at the signature." He stared at the page. His whole body was trembling. "If this is true, if I'm not his son, then what am I?" "You're like me," I said. "You're a child they bought, a possession." Something broke in Thomas that night. I saw it happen. The cruel, calculating young man shattered into a million pieces, and underneath was just a lost boy, a stolen boy, a boy who never knew who he really was. He didn't touch me again after that, didn't visit for his lessons. He just disappeared into his rooms and drank and raged and wept. 2 weeks later, Cornelius Beaumont was found dead in his study. Heart attack, the doctor said, but I saw the empty bottle on his desk. The same kind of bottle Dorothy wrote about in her journal. Thomas had finished what his mother started. And me? Thomas set me free. He gave me money, enough to live on, and put me on a train headed west. "Forget this place," he said. "Forget you ever met me. Build a new life, and never, ever come back." I did exactly what he asked. I built a life, got married, had children, became a grandmother, told no one about the Beaumont house, about the 3rd floor, about any of it. Until 1999. I was 62 years old when I got a letter from a lawyer in Tennessee. Thomas Beaumont had died, and in his will, he'd left me everything: the house, the land, the fortune. But there was a condition. I had to come back one last time to find what he'd buried under the rose bushes. I thought it would be Dorothy's bones, a proper burial, at last, for the woman whose journal saved me. But when I dug, when I finally broke through that dark Tennessee soil, I found a box, metal, rusted, heavy. Inside were documents, birth certificates, letters, photographs. And that's when I learned the truth, the real truth, the truth that explains everything. Thomas wasn't just a stolen child. Thomas was my brother, my mother's first son, the one she said died at birth, the one she mourned every single day of her life. Uncle Vernon didn't just sell me to the Beaumonts. He sold both of us. 30 years apart, to the same family. That's why Thomas looked at me the way he did. That's why he couldn't stay away. Some part of him, some deep, unspoken part, new asterisk. We were blood, we were family, and we found each other in the darkest possible way. I'm 90 years old now. I've buried 2 husbands, raised 4 children, and held 11 grandchildren. I've lived a good life, a blessed life. But I've never forgotten that little girl in the white dress with blue flowers. Never forgotten what it felt like to be sold, to be owned, to be nothing but a bag of gold to the people who should have loved me most. And Thomas, I think about him every day. My brother, the monster who wasn't a monster at all, just another broken child trying to survive. If there's a lesson in all this, I suppose it's this. You never really know someone's story. You never really know what made them the way they are. Even the villains of our lives were once victims of someone else's cruelty. It doesn't excuse it. Nothing excuses it. But maybe understanding it helps us forgive. Or maybe I'm just a foolish old woman, still trying to make sense of a senseless world. Thank you for listening to this old grandmother's story. It wasn't easy to tell, but some stories need telling, don't they? Some ghosts need to be spoken into the light. If my story moved you, I hope you'll hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment telling me about someone you've forgiven or someone you're still learning to forgive. And next week, I'll tell you an even darker story. The story of how I found my name written on my own daughter's death certificate. Sounds impossible, right? That's what I thought too. But in this family, impossible is just another word for Tuesday. Asterisk, I found my name on my daughter's death certificate. Asterisk, coming tomorrow. Asterisk.